On this episode of On the Bridge, I'm joined by our in-house master mariner, Captain George Mills. We dive into some of the most frequently asked questions around bridge management and navigation on board, as well as debunking a few of the common myths that still circulate within the industry. From practical insights on day-to-day bridge operations to the realities of managing navigation safely and efficiently at sea, Captain Mills brings a wealth of experience and clarity to topics that are often misunderstood. Hi, George. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. Right, I'm going to crack on with the questions. We've got quite a few. So this is a combination of frequently asked questions that we hear within the office and also questions that we've had from crew. So there's a real variety. So first up is, can you explain the organisational layers of governance at sea?
Well, it all cascades down from IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and I think what we're particularly interested in is SOLAS, the safety of life at sea, which is administered by a vessel's flag state, and in the UK's case, it's the MCA that do that on the behalf of UK flag.
Perfect. What is SOLAS and why is it so important?
SOLAS is the Safety of Life at Sea Convention, and it dates back to the Titanic disaster where they built a fine ship, but they didn't include enough lifeboats for all the people on board.
Really?
That's the origins of it, and it underpins all the safety legislation. It provides all the safety legislation which is administered by the flag states.
Why is it so important to every vessel?
Well, the clue's in the name, really, isn't it? Safety of life at sea. If we don't do it, then people are unsafe, injured, and die.
How does SOLAS apply to yachts specifically, and how does it differ between commercial yachts and private yachts?
Private yachts are exempt from some parts of the SOLAS Convention, but the Chapter 5 Safety and Navigation, that applies across the board, private or commercial.
Right. All vessels, all super yachts over a certain size?
Over 24 metres in length,
Right.
yeah.
We're now going to move on to passage planning, which is obviously very relevant to what we do here at DSNM. This is a question that comes up a lot. What is the bare minimum requirement for passage planning on a yacht over 24 metres?
Well, it depends on how far they're going, what the complexity of the voyage. The more complex the passage, then the more planning it's going to require. You should plan every passage from berth to berth. So
Right.
Effectively, that means moving across the harbour. But how much of a plan you make for moving from one part of the marina to another part of the marina, that's going to be quite a short plan.
So we had a question before about doing just waypoints.
No, it's not going to cut it.
Okay, so that's not a bare minimum.
No, that's not a plan. It's even less useful than what you've got on the chart.
Okay.
A list of latitudes and longitudes is of no practical value at all. You know, if you want to convert your waypoint list into something useful, then you would have the course to steer, the maximum safe speed, minimum underkeel clearance on that leg, any VHF reporting requirements, any notes about crossing traffic or other hazards that you might encounter during that particular leg. You can use your waypoint list as the start point.
Right.
Of you can build your passage plan from that, but just the waypoints by themselves are of no use at all. Right.
Perfect. Does the passage plan requirement differ if you're privately registered?
No, it comes under SOLAS Chapter 5,
which is relevant whether you're private or commercial. What would you say the key stages of a proper passage plan?
In the producing of it,
yes.
Well, there's the APEM, which most people will be familiar with, appraisal, planning, execution, and monitoring stages of the passage planning. So, they've all studied that at college, I hope.
And in your experience, what are the most common mistakes crew can make when creating a passage plan?
Failure to gather all the information. A lot of passage planning is done purely on the chart, and any number of accident reports will include a reference to failure to look in the pilot books,
right?
For example.
Yeah. So do you think that comes from maybe just rushing, or is that sort of a bad habit, or?
It's a bad habit, and probably 99 times out of 100 you'll get away with it just by drawing lines on the chart. You will get from A to B
Sure.
without having any significant issues. But it's that 100th time where if you had looked in the pilot books and the various other sources of information, then you may well have incorporated other elements into your plan that would
Sure.
help you avoid whatever hazard it is that caused the accident.
Sure. So using those pilot books would encourage you to incorporate more information. So by not using them, you end up with a much more basic process.
Yeah, it's a lot quicker.
Yeah, I'm sure. With half the information missing.
Yeah, but it's fail to plan, plan to fail. It really applies.
Yeah. Why do you think passage planning is sometimes treated as a tick box exercise rather than a safety critical process?
Because most of the time you will get away without doing a proper plan. If you put the lines on the chart, you will probably get where you want to be.
Yeah, A to B with no problems.
Yeah, but because you can get away with it, then
doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't mean you should. And people are busy. Yeah, they have
I would
a lot
say
of time pressures.
that definitely is something that we see and we hear a lot is obviously time pressures, especially with modern schedules and itineraries now. That would definitely be something we hear regularly. Could there be a risk in the over-reliance on ECDIS or plotters without proper cross-checking?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, particularly now with GNSS degradation. The Russians are jamming and spoofing in the Baltic. There's a lot going on in the Eastern Mediterranean. So where people are relying on the ECDIS, where you've got an automatic position, if you look, it's very convincing. It's a multicolour. It looks fantastic, and it's difficult to doubt it.
Yeah.
So it's at the moment, I'd say it's even more important than ever to be cross-checking. Simple things like checking the echo sounder. It's a very basic piece of kit, but you walk past, see what depth it says, and is that about the same as what it says on the chart? And if it is, then
the information
you're
is correct.
okay.
Yeah, no, sure. That makes perfect sense. What hazards are most commonly overlooked in passage plan?
Cross-track error is sometimes set too narrowly, and so it leaves the officer of the watch a limited area to go if he's going to stay within what's been checked by the auto route check function. Really, you want to set it as wide as you can, so that the watchkeeper's got space to go around fishing boats and other traffic and so on.
Sure.
But under keel clearance, that should be flagged up during the route check function. So I don't think that shouldn't be an issue if we're talking about ECDIS passage planning.
Any other hazards?
Tidal streams are obviously it's relevant information, but it all depends on what time you go and what time you arrive. And so to plan for that ahead of time is not always so straightforward. You could perhaps look up the strongest tidal streams that you're going to encounter in a certain area, so that you're aware what it could be. But you need to factor in the time on passage. It does get quite involved if you're going to make a comprehensive plan, taking exactly into account what you're going to get when you get there. That's quite an undertaking, and as we said before, quite a lot of the time they're not going to have the time to do that.
Sure. Any other hazards which are commonly overlooked in passage planning that maybe you see?
Traffic. People don't make a note, or we're expecting heavy traffic in this area,
Right.
or a high concentration of fishing vessels, which is the sort of information you might pick out of the pilot books. This is the sort of thing that ought to be in the remarks column in the passage plan,
Right.
which you build from your waypoint list.
How should crew incorporate contingency planning into a passage plan?
Well, you'd have contingency anchorages. You'd identify them in advance, so if you do need to go to anchor for whatever reason, then you've got somewhere ready identified.
What's a good example of a what if scenario crew should always prepare for?
I would say in general, I would be thinking about engine failure or steering gear failure. All the times when we were hoisting not under command signals, that was the cause.
Okay.
Yeah. So have that at the back of your mind
Yeah.
is not a bad thing.
And what about passage planning? What could be a what if situation? Is there something that you commonly see that crew maybe don't often have a contingency plan for?
Well, I think failure to monitor the weather forecast is not uncommon. A lot of the time in VHF range, I'll hear a coast radio station saying, "Oh, we'll switch to channel whatever. So we've got a weather forecast and some safety messages," and it's just ignored. What the watchkeeper won't. This is in commercial ships, not yachts.
Sure.
Yeah, they won't switch over and listen to it, which I find utterly bizarre.
Sure, especially if the information is being given
Yeah,
out for a
yeah,
reason, as we
yeah,
say, to keep everybody safe.
yeah, yeah.
Gosh. Okay. How should crew manage pressure from owners or guests when it conflicts with safe passage planning?
As best they can. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, well, if you won't do it, I'll find someone who will.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
at the back of the mind.
What would you, if a member of crew came to you for advice on that situation, what would be your advice to maybe a younger member of crew that was in a position where he or she was being put under pressure by guests? What would be your advice?
I would say if they're ever feeling uncomfortable and they can't and unable to give the guests the answer they want, then I can come and talk to them. Come and get me.
Call George on the bat phone.
Well, yeah. Well, not me personally,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
call the captain. Yeah, if that's why you've got a captain.
What if you are the captain?
Then you've got to weigh up your professional responsibility with your commercial responsibility, and I would say that the safety aspect comes first, and you've got to do your best to persuade the guests that that's why you have to do it, and then do it anyway.
Yeah. Because often I think it's a case of going against your personal integrity being put in a situation like that, isn't it? And like you say, the responsibility of that vessel and every single person on it lays with the captain. So it's a difficult situation. But like you say, you've got to balance it up what's right and what keeps people happy.
You've got to play the guests' expectations, haven't you? You've got to manage them
Yes.
in effect, and make sure they understand why you're being awkward, why you won't go into that particular bay or whatever it is that you're saying you can't do.
Yes.
And yeah, we're very, very sorry. We can't do that, and this is why we can't do it. And I think if, in my experience, the more open you can be and explanatory, and get them to understand what the issues are, then the more chance you've got of them well, perhaps not being happy with it, but understanding.
Yeah. If you could give crew a simple checklist for passage planning, what would it be?
I would go back to APEM and run through that, and I'd have a list of all the publications that I'm going to have a look at, and then in the planning stage, I'm going to put the lines on the chart, consult the charts, draw what I think are sensible lines, then run through the timing of it, identify the pressure points where I might want more people on the bridge, for example, because it's going to be a busy period, and then the monitoring stage, making sure that it's actually going according to plan. So that could be all written out in some detail to make it easy to follow.
So APEM's sort of the best thing to follow, really, because if you follow that, you can't really miss anything.
Yeah, you need some detail in it.
But as a basic structure.
It's a great structure to start from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. What are the biggest myths about passage planning in yachting?
I think there's some private yachts which will say they don't need to do one because they're private, which
Mhm.
actually isn't the case. They've still got to comply with Chapter 5, as we were saying before.
Of SOLAS,
Yeah. And we've been there before. Well, yeah, you might well have been there before. I've been loads of places before, but I would still want a passage plan because things changed. The regulations changed. Did you check the harbour regs since you were last here? Is there now a speed limit of 4 knots, which is going to cost you a $5,000 fine because you broke it because you hadn't checked it beforehand?
Sure.
So that's the sort of detail which a proper passage plan will dig out.
Yeah.
And so it does protect you, not necessarily against accidents, but also against coming up against the harbour master.
Or new sort of areas of conservation.
Yeah,
or
all
anything
that,
like that.
all that.
Thanks for watching this episode so far. We have some great guests coming up, and we wouldn't want you to miss any of those future episodes. So please don't forget to click the subscribe button and enjoy the rest of this episode. We're going to move on to ECDIS and bridge management. What are the advantages and disadvantages of using electronic chart display information systems, ECDIS, over traditional paper charting?
Well, any second officer will tell you that the advantage is that you don't have to do chart corrections anymore, which is that's a fair comment.
Yes, it's definitely time consuming.
And you have real-time live positioning on the screen, and it's automatically updating. They are huge advantages. The main disadvantage to my mind is that it is such a convincing display. And if you do come up against GPS issues, it's after time it can become difficult to doubt what your ECDIS is telling you, which is why cross-checking is so important.
Yeah, and I guess the longer that you use ECDIS and you become more familiar with it, more comfortable with it, I guess that's something that you have to be quite conscious of yourself if you're the user of it, that you are still checking in to make sure, like we were saying earlier, using other ways to just ensure the data is correct.
Yeah, absolutely. We've just put the latest safety bulletin up on Compass, which the International Chamber of Shipping have brought out a poster highlighting the dangers of GPS failure and jamming and spoofing and so on, and what to watch for, and what to do if you think you've got it. And it is absolutely key because it's only a tool. Rubbish in, rubbish out. All the cliches apply, but it is very easy to get sucked into the ECDIS screen. I think, this is where we are, this is where we're going. Everything's fine because it's saying what I'm expecting it to say and what I'm wanting it to say. I think the thing which people don't do as much as they used to because they've got ECDIS is radar parallel indexing, which is it's an independent check of your distance off a headland or a lighthouse or whatever, and it verifies your cross-track error,
right?
Completely independent of the GPS, which is absolutely key. And you can do things like look at the AIS overlay on your radar screen, and if the AIS target isn't sitting on top of the radar target, sometimes there's a small error, but if they're significantly different, then you think, well, there is a potential GPS. It might be a jar error, but it depends on how it's misaligned.
But good ways to check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be routinely used.
Yeah, if a glance at the radar with the AIS overlay will tell you straight away if the GPS and the radar are telling you the same story, and if they are, then you're probably okay.
But it's a bit like reading something on the Daily Mail website and then maybe going to check it on another website, because just because it's on the website doesn't mean it's true. So it's cross-checking the information in variety of areas to make sure that it is correct.
Well, yeah, but you'd be surprised to know that I'm not a reader of the Daily Mail website.
Me neither.
So I wouldn't know so much about that.
Okay, what are the essential training requirements for mariners to become proficient in using ECDIS and the best ways to ensure its compliance?
Well, they need to do a generic ECDIS training course. So everyone's got to do that. You don't have to do a type-specific training course anymore, although Flag state might require it. Some flag states do, and the SOS safety management system might require it as well. So
Oh, that's interesting.
it's not an IMO requirement. But what is an IMO requirement is familiarization, which should be conducted on board.
And how would that be conducted on board?
You would have a checklist. There's a in NP 133C there is a familiarization checklist. I think Nautical Institute have got an ECDIS familiarization checklist, and so you'd run through. It kicks off with find the on-off button. It does take you through just about everything.
Yeah. And would you do that yearly, or?
I would say yes. You'd want to revisit that on an annual basis, as evidence of familiarization. But really, it's using the kit, day in, day out, and exploring it, so finding out what other functionality is. Stand next to someone who's better at it than you, and
before you leave.
Well, yeah, the familiarization has to be done before you keep a watch.
Yeah.
But just going through the list is okay. You are familiar with it, but it's not quite the same as using it in practice when you're in the middle of the Dover Straits and there's fog and there's ferries coming at you left and right and there's bulkers overtaking you.
Yeah.
And it's all getting a bit frantic. The familiarization checklist will. Well, it's going to be a help certainly, but it's really practical familiarity with the kit that counts.
So the generic course, then familiarization, and then using the
play with it.
With someone hopefully who is
or just time off watching alongside. Maybe having formal sessions in the evening. If the second mate who's doing, or whoever it is who does the updates, you'd expect to be pretty au fait with all aspects of it, or a lot more perhaps than some of the other watchkeepers.
Perfect.
So spend some time, ask them to spend some time with it.
How can bridge crew effectively manage alarms and alerts on ECDIS to prevent alarm fatigue?
Well, the thing to remember is that alarms are there for a reason. So no one is going to be suggesting turning them off. It's more to do with adjusting the safety settings so you get appropriate alarms. In a narrow channel, you'd want to shorten in your guard zone, for example, so that it's not triggering every 30 seconds.
Sure.
But occasionally it will be busy. The situation on the bridge will be busy, and then I'd say that's when you'd call the captain. I mean, he's there for a reason.
Yeah. What are some of the common pitfalls crew should try to avoid when using ECDIS? So any sort of common errors that you see when you're going on board?
I would think probably over-reliance is the big one here. People don't. They should. My recommendation would be to plot a manual position every watch, just to maintain familiarity with that. But over-reliance. Yeah, definitely. It's a great tool, and that's the problem. It is so good that it's very difficult not to become over-reliant on it.
Yeah, sure. What bridge equipment or technology do you often see being underutilized by crew? So you've mentioned a couple earlier that I thought were really interesting.
Echo sounder, always. It's your silent friend. It just sits there doing its job. So you would, as I mentioned before, I think, check the echo sounder against the charted depth occasionally, not every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes, but when you're passing, just have a quick glance and does that make sense? And use the depth alarm. That's a really useful tool, and I would set the depth alarm to 50 or 100 meters when I was on a deep sea passage, because it's like a sort of wake up time. Yeah, you're coming towards shallow water. But it needs to be adjusted depending on where you are, for sure. And the other one I'd say is the Navtex.
Okay.
People very rarely look at that. They make sure they've got the right stations dialed in, but quite often I see it doesn't get looked at.
What are the best practices for ensuring reliability and safety in bridge management?
I think regular team meetings, bridge team meetings, go a long way. Just taking half an hour with coffee in a quiet spell, just to sit down and run through any issues. You could do a bit of training at the same time. Yeah, have a look at the ECDIS, as we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Familiarization with some of the kit which people don't use as much. The autopilot quite often isn't understood as well as it could be. So perhaps getting the manual out and diving into all the functionalities that are in there and how you would use them.
Yeah, making sure that everyone's
Yeah,
on board and pulling in the
Yeah.
same direction with
yeah.
regard
Well,
to
just they know how to use the kit.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental, but people I find often they'll know what they need, what they think they need to know, and nothing else, and they're not inquisitive like they used to be. They don't go looking for stuff.
But I wonder also if part of that is due to the pressure faced on board now, that there does feel, and I could be wrong, obviously I'm not crew, but it does feel as if there's a sort of real increase on the time constraint, that a lot of people and crew are moving a lot, and then when you get on board a new boat, maybe you're going straight out to charter, so maybe the time allowed for learning and handing over, maybe you didn't even get a handover if the crew member maybe left under short notice. So like you say, the simplicity of just having regular meetings and checking in and making sure that everyone is au fait with the equipment that's on board, and if not, who needs a bit of extra help, is probably
Yeah.
underestimated.
Well,
isn't it?
in commercial shipping, they would, a lot of SMSs will say you have a pre-departure meeting with
Right.
all the bridge team, and you have a pre-arrival meeting. And you
Sure.
discuss what you anticipate the berthing maneuver is going to be.
Okay,
the
so you're
pre-
going to quite a lot of
yeah,
detail
yeah,
then.
yeah. And the navigation officer will take the team through the plan for the entire passage,
Brilliant.
which is great if you've got
Yeah.
time.
Yes, if you've got
That's
time.
the thing, and yeah, time pressure is nasty.
Yeah.
It forces you to cut corners.
Yeah, sure. What information do you find can be commonly missed on bridge watch handovers?
I would say navigation warnings,
Okay.
new navigation warnings that have come in. Traffic position, course speed, and so on. That is all covered as a matter of routine. I don't see any issues with that. But yeah, I'd say it's navigation warnings where people slip up sometimes.
Can you give me the key emergency procedures involving bridge equipment that crews should be familiar with?
Yeah, the big one is GPS failure. We talk about running a GPS failure drill. That's what I do on a navigation audit. If we've got
Right.
sea room, we'll turn the GPS off and see how the bridge behaves, because
Wow.
each bridge is configured differently,
Yes.
and so the gyro may may not go into alarm. It might stop working if it doesn't have its latitude and speed input. The ECDIS should go into dead reckoning mode automatically.
Right.
All the GMDSS kit may or may not go into alarm because it hasn't got its GPS position anymore. And so getting people familiar with how their bridge will behave in the event of GPS failure makes it a lot easier to deal with in the middle of the night when
it does.
suddenly 7 or 8 different alarms have all started shouting at you.
And I guess you would never know how everything on the bridge would behave without doing that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
actually, then if it does happen, then you feel comfortable with, or as comfortable as you can, obviously.
Yeah,
If it
I'm not sure comfortable is the word.
You might panic slightly less if you've been through it and
Yeah, if you've been through it
understood
in slow time, people make notes. When we do this, yeah, this happened, and then this went into alarm. But interestingly, when we turned off that GPS and then that one, this didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah, it's familiarity with how it's going to behave if it happens.
Yeah.
And it's particularly important, I think, with retrofit equipment. So if
Right.
you've got a bridge which was built without ECDIS, then ECDIS was added on, then seeing how that interacts with everything else, it's really, really useful.
Yeah, and that's so common now,
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
What specific roles and responsibilities should each member of the bridge team take to ensure safe navigation?
each member of the bridge team, well, the captain has the oversight. He's got the overview. It's one of the I've almost been waiting for an excuse to say this. It's one of the common themes of grounding reports is that the captain didn't check the passage plan.
Right.
It's
Okay.
put
That's
together
interesting.
by a junior officer, and the captain was too busy or wasn't in the habit of checking it.
Right.
So that is a common. I sailed on a bulker going through the Baltic, and I watched the captain spending about 20-30 minutes inching through the passage plan, just because it was a deep draft vessel for the southern Baltic, and just going through it meticulously.
Right.
And that's the degree of care that is sometimes necessary. Depending on the circumstances, you wouldn't do that in the middle of the Atlantic.
Of course. Yeah.
So the captain's got the oversight. He's got to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the kit. And so on, as we said before, and the navigation officer is, he's maintaining the publications and the ECDIS up to date. That's a key function. Again, that comes under the captain's oversight as well.
But updating and making sure everything is as ready to go as possible is.
Yeah, well, it's much easier if you keep it up to date rather than try and play catch up later on.
How can bridge teams balance the use of automated systems and active human-based decision making?
Well, the fundamental, which is often forgotten these days, is to look out of the window, and it's another thing which crops up in grounding reports. They've had a lighthouse or a buoy on the wrong side, should have been on the starboard side, but there it was on the port side flashing away, and people get sucked into the screens, 4, 5, 6 screens that they've got with all this marvelous information in front of them, which does suck you in, and and you do forget to look out of the window. The ECDIS is telling you where you are and where it's planned to go, but you'd be cross-referencing that with your traffic situation. So you'd perhaps have an AIS overlay on your ECDIS, which would give you an overview, but you'd be monitoring the radar as well, obviously. Something which people don't seem to do these days nearly as much as set the ARPA targets, acquire ARPA targets. Automatic radar plotting seems to be neglected. People are deriving what they consider to be enough information from the AIS, which is risky because the AIS is dependent on the data transmitted by the other vessel in terms of CPA and TCPA, and you don't know how good or otherwise his kit is.
Yeah, sure.
So it can give you poor information. If you're basing your traffic avoidance maneuvers on that, you can get seriously unstuck.
Okay. Can you share some examples of effective bridge team management?
Well, in general terms, to my mind, it's all about communication and a two-way flow of information. So whoever has the con, usually the captain, where this is becoming more critical, or perhaps a pilot, and he or she is being fed information by the navigation officer, by the captain, and linked to that is the ability to challenge. And sometimes, excuse me, captain, did you see the big rock over there? And a good captain will say, yes, thanks, I did see the big rock, but I'm just going to wait till we're past this fishing boat, and then we're going to water course around the big rock. Whereas other captains will say, of course I saw the big rock. Do you think I'm an idiot? And and then what happens is whoever it was who was pointing it out is, well, I'm not going to bother saying that again.
Yeah, sure. Sort of closed off to that open communication.
Yeah. But I've done training trips in out of Palma, and it's the one I'm thinking of in particular. The communication was so good, really sharp, crisp, concise, and acknowledged as well. So it's a closed loop communication system.
Yeah. So you would say then good examples that you've seen are teams where they feel comfortable communicating up the ladder to a captain or maybe a senior officer, where their opinion and their feedback is welcomed, even if that person's already aware of what they're.
Yeah, or you might say something that's wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, a good captain.
But they don't feel stupid to
yeah,
say
they're
it.
not made to feel stupid about it.
And I think that's really interesting, because then in a good situation, that's brilliant. But when things go wrong, you actually do want your crew to feel comfortable to be able. They're going to kind of come to you and say,
right.
"This is
Yeah.
going wrong," or "This could
Yeah.
go wrong," rather than thinking, "I'm just going to keep that to myself."
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting, because that's sort of the same in a business environment as well. Having that.
Yeah. It's universal, isn't it? The ability to communicate two ways is key. And there's so many more sort of officey, politicky type issues I have arisen that I've seen, where no one's done anything fundamentally wrong. It's just that they haven't talked to each other properly.
Sure. Yeah, and then things get missed.
Yeah.
Or, no, that's
But
really interesting.
encouraging the newbie to speak up as well is important. So I see sometimes a cadet or somebody who's just standing there a bit nervous in the corner, and you say, why don't you, Captain, why don't you ask him to report when he can see that ship's green side light? Something which is pretty irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, not irrelevant necessarily, but it's not of significant importance.
Yeah.
But it just gets him or her used to speaking on the bridge.
Yeah, that's
just give them a minor thing to report on. Tell me when we're 5 miles from the breakwater, please.
And build a bit of confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, sure, that's really interesting. Okay, we're going to move on for the last few questions now. ITU, what information does it give a mariner? Why is it important to carry the prerequisite volumes?
Well, it's a legal requirement. If you're sailing outside the VHF areas, if you're in A2, A3 or A4, then it's a requirement that you carry them. And it's frustrating because they're expensive, and they're, I think, to a lot of people, they're of limited value. But
they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason, yeah. And it's the law.
This is a question from a member of crew, actually. We come across a lack of ENC data sometimes, or no data for particular areas. We then rely on unofficial chart data like time zero. Is this compliant?
Strictly speaking, no, but we could dig down a bit and think about how you deal with that sort of situation. I would say the first thing to do is to consider, do we actually need to go there? If we haven't got the data, if we do have to go there, then when we don't have ENC data, then we're going back to passage planning and pulling out all the available information. So we're looking to see if there are locally produced paper charts, for example, and you'll find a lot of information in the pilot books again. But if it's being done properly, your passage plan's being done properly, then that's all done in advance. So you've got time to work all this out before you get there. You're not just turning up and suddenly finding that there's nothing to navigate with.
Yeah, so it all goes back to the very start of the conversation about being prepared, and that's why passage plan is there. So you're aware of anything like this that you're going to encounter during the passage. Thanks, George. That was really interesting. And I'm excited to share your insights with our customers and crew members that we work with.
Great.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.